Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well today. Well, I just wanted to together a quick video. Really, I'm just going to read this next slide. But I just thought it's so cool to put together something that it traps in all of the world, something known as the World Bank Group, which is a collection of 5 individual organizations that the World Bank has established. And the main aims of the group are to provide aid and advice to developing countries, as well as reducing poverty levels and encouraging and safeguarding international investment. The big picture aim here of the group was to promote economic development, but they're really controversial. And the World Bank it's one of these things where like people and the international in the developed nations have good intentions, but the realities on the ground for a developing nation might be very different than what the developed nations anticipate. And as a result, can be this tension between the donor and the recipient of those funds. So let's just take a look at this. I'll read through it so that you have it in your head. Obviously, you can do more research on any one of these individual groups. Okay, so the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or the IBRD, was founded in 1945, and it grants loans to developing countries. The funds for these loans are generated by the issue of World Bank bonds in global capital markets. So it's not private. Well, it's money raised in the capital markets, and the repayment of bonds is guaranteed by the member of states and by the government of the borrowing country. And because of this, the bonds are seen as very safe, and the IBRD is able to get the funds at relatively low interest rates. Thus, the IBRD can lend to developing countries at rates that are below the rates that the countries would have to pay if they borrowed the money themselves. That's super cool. It's like a filter for developing nations in order to receive money from the capital markets at a lower interest rate. And these loans are usually given to support specific projects that are aimed to promote economic development. Projects may include the provision of education, improvements in healthcare, improvements in agriculture, the reduction of pollution, or the improvement of a country's infrastructure. Loans are often conditional, which means that the recipient country may have to agree to follow certain policy changes if it is to receive the loan. For example, a loan to improve agriculture productivity may be tied to a guarantee to monitor and reduce environmental pollution. These sorts of things that are add-on, that they're conditional, this is what creates a lot of political problems. Because if you're in a developing country and you want to receive this money for agricultural productivity, but if you have to then guarantee or monitor and reduce environmental pollution, when you're in a developing country, reducing environmental pollution is a lot less important than providing food for your people, and that may cause political problems on the ground in the recipient nation, because if you have people who are starving, people who are not getting that kind of food, and then the government's saying, oh no, we need to worry about the pollution levels, but that's taking money away from providing basic services, you can have a political problem there. All right, the International Finance Corporation, or the IFC, this was founded in 1956, so 11 years later, and its aim is to promote private sector investment in developing countries as opposed to public sector investment. The IFC lends its own and borrowed funds to private customers to finance projects in developing countries. It is a profit-making institution, has never made a loss. The projects funded must be expected to have positive outcomes in terms of economic development. The IFC is also involved in giving technical assistance both to companies and governments. So this is the International Finance Corporation. It's private sector investment in developing countries, a different take than the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Cool. The third part of the World Bank Group is the International Development Association, or the IDA. This was founded in 1960, and it gives interest-free loans with repayment periods of up to 30 years to the poorest of developing countries. Interest-free, free money. Well, not free. They have to pay it back, but they don't have to pay interest on it. So free. The lending is funded by contributions from member countries, and voting rights are based upon the size of each country's contributions, which, of course, has caused some concern. All of these agencies have caused concern. The fourth is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, or MIGA. This was founded pretty recently in 1988, and it promotes foreign direct investment in developing countries by selling political risk insurance to MNCs. This covers war, terrorism, and confiscation of assets by the government and the freezing of funds within a country. The MIGA is funded by the World Bank Group and its member countries. So these are multinational corporations, and the World Bank wants multinational corporations to invest in developing nations, and the multinational corporations are like, well, forget that. Well, I'm going to lose all my money if there's war, terrorist activity, or the government confiscates it. And so the guarantee agency, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, sells insurance to multinational corporations that says, hey, if there is a war, is terrorism, is confiscation, you can get your money back. And that's a way of encouraging private investment in the developing nation. And the last thing is the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes, or the ICSID, which was created in 1966, which facilitates the settlement of investment disputes between member countries and individual international investors. There are over 150 countries are now members of the ICSID. And this, you think about it, you know what it is, International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. So if there's a dispute between a government and a multinational corporation, or two different international corporations, this is a place where they could go to solve their problems. All right, my friends, there's the World Bank Group. This is the type of thing in development that sounds so great on paper, but creates a lot of tension, or can create a lot of tension in developing nations. So while it's well-intended, it doesn't necessarily mean those good intentions create good outcomes. Of course, sometimes it does. A lot of times it does, but sometimes it doesn't. All right, I hope you found this video to be helpful. We'll talk to you in a bit.